G'day, I'm Craig Gemmill, Managing Director of Gemmill Homes. I'm the man that stands behind every home he builds. I'm a family man. I've got 3 children that keep me pretty busy. I'm also a qualified dive master, so I enjoy diving in my spare time. I enjoy running my own business, and I'm someone with a goal.
Welcome to this episode of the Someone with a Goal podcast, and today representing Swag Perth, we get to hear the powerful story of Craig Gemmill, Managing Director of Gemmill Homes. In this interview, Craig shares growing up in a working class family, decided to leave high school only to gain admission into another school, the School of Hard Knocks, working different jobs in different industries, and it was through these experiences where he picked up business, customer service, and life skills, which has resulted in where he is today, as a multi-award winning and one of Western Australia's trusted home builders. Now, Craig is all about branding, explaining the importance of being real, and really just shares his tips on what it takes to brand effectively and how to stand out in today's economy. So guys, if you are bouncing around right now, unsure of what career path to pursue, Craig's story is proof that even when you don't have it all figured out, you can still make it. So without further ado, I encourage you to sit back, pay attention, and enjoy the amazing story of Craig Gemmill. Enjoy.
Craig, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just want to jump straight into it. I know how you are renowned with your brand of standing behind the home that you built. But I want to know, and I want to take you back to Craig Gemmill back in the day of growing up through the ages. Firstly, where did you grow up? Are you the eldest, and how was your what was your upbringing like?
So, middle child from rural and country Victoria. So I've been in Western Australia for 24 years, but I left school actually before I finished year 10, so a very young age, probably too young when I look at my son now who's 19. I don't think he'll be moving out till he's 30. But no, we were just working class people. Both my parents were school teachers at the high schools, and we didn't have any money or much money. It was just a simple sort of country life.
Going from school, where did you go through from school? You had a job lined up after that?
Well, the interesting thing, and I see it with this generation today, is I didn't know what I wanted to do. So when you don't know what you want to do, you just go and try a few things. So I got a job working as a jockey on a truck, so doing furniture removals. So that was hard yakka in the summer. So we did that, and I got the chance to travel all up and down the east coast, shifting people into their homes and all that. And the company I worked for at the time had the contract for Defence Forces, so we shifted a lot of defence personnel. So I did that for a number of years, and then, believe it or not, I got into Roger David selling clothes as a bit of a change, because I got sick and tired of the hot, dusty work. So while I was doing that, I had a bit of a passion for dealing with people, and an opportunity through my girlfriend at the time when I was in Victoria was to get a job at the Melbourne Hilton there on Wellington Parade. So I started there as a concierge and carrying people's bags up and down. And then through the hospitality industry, it's very incestuous, as it were. Everyone moves around, everyone gets to know people. So I went up to the Park Royal Parramatta in 1986. And at the time I was Australia's youngest head concierge. Oh, wow. So a concierge is all things to all your guests. You should be able to arrange taxis, dinners, do all that sort of stuff. So that's where you build up your contact base. So that was quite good. So I continued on with that, and I ended up going to the Pavilion Hotel in Canberra.
How old are you around this time?
Gee whiz, now I've got to think. I was probably 28.
Okay.
And then I realised hospitality wasn't going to be for me. So I went to the Canberra Uni as a mature age student. So given that I'd left school before I was 17, I had to go back and study for a year. And then I had to sit what was called back in those days the Australian Scholastic Aptitude Test. Okay. So they want to see if you've got the discipline to do the study during the year, and then what sort of mark you get. And I wanted to go and study law. Okay. So I got enrolled then into the Barristers and Solicitors Admission Board, and that was through the University of Sydney, but we did our lectures at the ANU. So I was doing that, so I was studying law. I thought, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I did that for 18 months, but anyone out there that knows, if you're a student, you've got to put food on the table.
Of course.
So I started cleaning rental properties at night and things like that to keep food on the table, and I was working night shift as an auditor at a hotel. and it was all getting a bit hard, you know, to balance the university life with working at night. And I don't know how it came about, but an opportunity, that's right. When the real estate office that I was cleaning rentals for, they said you'd be good in sales. So I thought, all right, I'll give that a crack so I can work weekends. And yeah, I was doing okay with that, but then an opportunity came up to go and sell land. And that's when that was my first introduction to the building industry.
And this is still over east?
Yeah, so this was in a place called Queanbeyan. And so I went there and worked for Alex Brinkmeyer, had the Land and National Development Corporation there, and this was around about, so 1998. And I worked there for a while and I really enjoyed it, working with the builders and helping people with the land, so much so that I put my law studies on hold, and I thought I found a career that has got the social interaction and also so good money. So that's how I started. That was my foothold into this industry.
In terms of the concierge and that experience, how beneficial was that service and being a service and organising all that for clients or for customers? And how has that skill been beneficial in today for you?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. It's more about building up networks, being approachable, and being able to accommodate everybody. That's the thing. I mean, you've got to provide a service, and certainly that's what we do here. That was at the forefront when we created Gemmill Homes. It's I always say to people, we don't have a building company, we have a people company, a people business.
Take us back to your first house. Your first house that you built, your first when you were first homeowner.
Yeah. Your
feelings and your expectations of did everything go all right, and what were your feelings? Did you have a family back then, or?
No, it was just the first home I built was with myself and my wife, and I was actually working at Summit Homes at the time. So my first home was a Summit home, which was a brilliant home, and it was out there in Ellenbrook, and I had dreams. That was all I could afford at the time. And
4x2, 3x2?
A little 3x2, on a cottage lot in Ellenbrook. So what happened there, I was working at Summit Homes in Myaree, and this was in Ellenbrook, and I had an idea to go out to Ellenbrook, and we were renting close to Myaree at the time. But then my wife got pregnant, our firstborn was coming along, and I just realised that I'm not going to do the commute to Ellenbrook all the time. But in terms of the feeling when you get a new home, I don't think you ever lose that feeling. All of a sudden, it's your own bit of Australia. Yeah. It's your own bit of turf. You can walk out in your backyard, and it's an incredible feeling. And we talk about when you're renting and you can't do certain things or whatever. It's a bit overwhelming when you first get your home, because you realise it's like you've almost been paroled. You can do anything you want. And so you just, what I always say to people is take the time to enjoy the feeling. You don't have to do everything straight away. You don't have to do your gardens. You don't have to furnish the house and furnish every room. Let it come to you.
You went through Summit and then from memory Commodore Homes.
Yeah, so I came over here actually and to work for Commodore Homes. Okay. So the fella that got me over from over east is now working for me. He's nearly 70 and he's now working for me as a sales consultant. So a lot of knowledge and everything in the industry. So he's been the full circle, and I'm still halfway around the circle, I think.
And how integral has he been part in your transition from working for Summit to now taking that leap and creating Gemmill Homes, your own brand?
Yeah, it's interesting, and actually his wife is one of our longest serving consultants. So I think that in our industry, I always say to people, if salespeople come and go or staff members come and go, do the right thing, don't burn your bridges, because there'll be opportunities that will come back, and it's certainly that way in our industry. And this fella's sort of bounced back and forth, but he's always done the right thing, never done the wrong thing, and I respect that. And so when he rang me one day and wanted a job, I welcomed him back with open arms.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Craig, the feeling I get from you is you're a great networker, you're a great communicator. For our audience out there who may be maybe needing more experience in that regard, what tips can you give in terms of communicating your vision for this, or how did you communicate your vision for this, and networking? What skills can they work on to expand their empire?
Look, you've got to be a genuine person. you've got to be visible, you've got to do the hard yards. And I mean, it's no secret that at the moment the WA economy, which is pretty scary, it's either a boom or bust here in Western Australia, and you've got to be able to have the strength to deal with that. You know, when the market takes off, we run around and we hire people like nobody's business, and we're getting all these people on board to cater for the demand. When the demand is no longer there, then unfortunately, you know, you reduce your overheads, and the casualty of that is people. So understand anybody that's thinking about this industry, it is a roller coaster, and you've got to be able to deal with the highs and lows.
Just on that, on dealing with the highs and lows and the slow periods, like in retail, they're going through the online shopping, so everyone, the customer bases, so they're having slow periods. And I know with the housing economy, it's a slow period at the moment as well. How do you get through that slow period, like mentally, mindset-wise?
It's really hard, and one thing that I've found, look, you've always got to be in tune with your business all the time, and certainly that's what happened to us when we got too big. Then all of a sudden you're relying on too many more people, and we went through a really tough period for 2 years because unfortunately some of the people that you have on don't share your vision. And that's the problem when you're on the way up, because you're just grabbing people because you think you need them, but you're not necessarily going for the right people. But it's all about keeping the integrity all the way through and keeping your hands on the levers.
Okay. How do you balance Gemmill Homes, the business, with Craig Gemmill, the family man?
In these sort of times, you don't. You don't. You don't. And I think that when you're working long hours and you're taking your stress home or whatever, that does have an impact on your family. And I think a lot of people, business coaches and trainers, are always trying to get you to get that work-life balance. But if you're the man that stands behind the product and you've got to be the captain on the deck, then it does suffer at home, you know, and that's being completely honest. But what's happened now is, you know, my oldest is 19 and then I've got a 17-year-old and a 10-year-old. You've really got to make the time, however small it is. It might be just, you know, going for a bike ride or taking the dog to a beach. You've physically got to go home and say, hey, come on, we're taking the dog to the beach, and get out, because it's too easy to get home, fire up your computer, do your calls, you know.
Yeah. And it's just to de-stress and just to obviously get your mind off things when you go to go to the beach.
But I've got to say, it's hard. It's hard.
Man,
easy to say, harder to do.
I don't know anyone that's mastered it yet, and I don't think there is any way you can, but only do your best.
Yes.
Craig, the team that you have here in Gemmill Homes, and how do you go about picking the right people to carry your vision? Obviously you have to hire the right people, but what's your process in selecting?
Another good question. One of the mistakes I've made, or two mistakes, is hiring people out of longevity and loyalty. It doesn't always work. You've always got to put those feelings aside and make sure you get the right person for the right job, even if that means that someone that's been with you for a long time and are very loyal, they might necessarily be the right person for the job. And sometimes telling them that is really hard, but if you don't do that and you put the wrong person in the wrong position, the whole business can suffer.
Okay. And another, just feeding off that, Craig, the managing people's expectations, customers, clients. How do you deal with that, and how do you just make sure that their expectations are obviously reality?
Firstly, you can't be all things to all people. We tried that, and you simply can't. So if you can do it, say you can do it. If you can't, tell them you can't do it.
Be honest.
Yeah. And you know, another good saying that's what we've always used, and I say it with the salespeople, people can handle bad news, but they can't handle no news. So if something's going wrong, tell them, get the opportunity to address it and all that sort of stuff, but don't be silent.
Okay. What's Craig working on now? What's in the pipeline in the moment?
I think like every building company in Western Australia, where this has been the longest and most severe downturn in our market, a lot of people on the outside would just say it's normally a part of a correction, and it is, but I think there's a lot of fear out there. We just need some certainty in the market, and then we can get back onto a more even keel, as it were. But your comment about retail's suffering. What we've witnessed in our industry, has been the pace of change. Like in the last 2 years, it's incredible the way our customers interact with us. You know, people don't ring anymore. People want to text. People want to email. So there's different ways that your buyers engage with you, and if you're not keeping up with that, you miss those opportunities. So technology, you know, just seeing it all the time. The pace of change. You know, if you're not upgrading your websites all the time, they can't keep up with the technology because the far greater percentage of people are interacting on your phones and your tablets. And the other thing is they like when you put a video, like on your website, put subtitles on there, because half the time they're looking at that video while they're at work. Yeah. You know, so there's things like this you learn, you know?
Yeah, good points. Just thanks, Craig. And really just want to touch on one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Before we go into a little game. And that is the way that you've built your brand. And actually, I've got two questions that I want to ask you before. The way that you've built your brand and how you stand behind every home that you've built, and how authentic you are and how transparent you are. What recommendations could you pass on to someone who's building their own brand and you know, who's a no name at the moment right now, and what can they do to get their name out there to make a mark as they build their own little empire?
Well, the reason why we called it Gemmill Homes is the fact that if you're going to be a brand, if you're going to put your name on the building, be accountable, make sure you're there, and own your mistakes. You know, there's no blame in our business. I acknowledge the areas that I've got it wrong, and the period of our business where we did get things wrong. But you can't dwell on it, you move on. So if you're going to start your own business, be prepared for the long hours, the ups and the downs, but be accountable. You own it. You can't just wake up one day and say, I don't want to do this anymore, because that's the hardest thing with our business. Every decision I make impacts not only me, but everybody that works for me. So I can't make a selfish decision based on me. I've got to think about all the people that work for me, all the clients that have entrusted us to build their home, all the subcontractors that work for us. So it becomes this really big picture. Whatever you do, whatever business you do, understand you've got to be accountable. Let's summarise it.
That is summarised in one step, and what I can feel from you is the passion.
Yes.
There's a drive there. And what's the core of that drive? What drives you?
You know, that's an interesting question, and the reason being, it's not fear of failure. It's more about the success, the accomplishment. You know, if you want to climb a mountain, you've got to go and train. You just don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to go and climb that mountain. You've got to do a certain amount of preparation. No different to this business. And I suppose we're still a young business. Like we're 15 years old, so you think about it, you know, we had a good run there, and yet the last 4 or 5 years have been really tough. So 50% of the time in our business, we're in a really, really tough market. Yeah. Now that's great for me now. I look at the positives with that, because I'm getting ready for the next upturn, and then what does my business look like then? And then hopefully I can mentor this next generation coming through, and when they start to get ahead of themselves, I'm going to say, hey, hang on, pull your head in a little bit here, because there's dark times coming. There's a valuer in town, and he said to me one day, he said, Craig, when you're on the bottom, you never see the top. And when you're on the top, you never see the bottom. And that is so true.
One more question. Competition. I know there's yourself and I know you've been in the business 14 years, 15 years?
So in total, working for companies in Western Australia, so 24 years and 15 years with my own.
With Gemmell?
Yeah.
How have you managed to stand out from the rest and be that one step above or ahead of your competition?
Look, you don't go for all the business. You can't be all things to all people, as I said before. Competition's a good thing. It makes everybody work that little bit harder to create points of difference in terms of customer service and the quality and the products they've got. So the ultimate beneficiary is obviously the clients. Yeah. So I think competition's a good thing, and competition keeps you on your toes, and it stops the hubris. It stops you becoming arrogant. And the minute that happens, you're heading for a big fall.
Okay, Craig, we're going to lead into a game. This game is really, it's called Mindset of a Millionaire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw you a word.
Yeah. And
whatever that word, you're going to give me one word back of that word that resembles to you. Okay, so I'll throw you a word. So, for example, passion. And what does passion mean to you? And just throw that word back to me.
Passion, accomplishment.
Okay. The only thing is you can't repeat the same word. Okay?
right.
Have to check my vocabulary. Yeah.
So, okay, accomplishment, so passion, accomplishment, success,
Failure.
money,
Doesn't buy you happiness. That was 3 words.
business,
Tough.
entrepreneurship,
Natural.
family,
Important.
branding,
Very important.
and the Gemmell Home legacy.
I'm not going to have a one-word answer
Yep.
to that, but what I'm going to say about that, you know, I thought about it and I looked at some of the iconic brands that are still around in Western Australia today, and some of these businesses have been going 40, 50 years. That's what I'd like to see with Gemmell Homes. So
Just longevity.
Longevity. When I'm gone, I want that brand and everything that we're working hard to create now, I want it to be part of the future of Western Australia and certainly home building. And that's not arrogance, that's what we're working hard for. And you know, for future generations should be able to understand what they're getting from this business that we're creating.
Beautiful. And just the last word, you ready? Fulfillment.
I've yet to find it.
Okay.
I think that, it's just, I suppose you can ask that question at any point in time and the answer could be different.
Yeah.
At the moment, I don't think anyone in our industry feels fulfilled.
Yeah.
It's just hard work.
Okay.
But it's like climbing the mountain. I reckon we're 3/4 of the way up. When we get to the top, I'll text you the answer.
Oh, cool. No worries. No worries. Craig, just to wrap up, today we have a swag competition. Obviously, someone with a goal, but obviously the way we dress. So I'm dressed today by my 3 girls. So I'm going to give you the personality. So the shirt, the pants, and the shoes were picked by my 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and 8-year-old.
Yeah, nice.
Now I'm going to give you the personalities of each of them, and I want you to guess. We have a competition that's going on social media right now.
Yeah.
I want you to guess which child picked what. Okay, so child number 1, she is loving, caring, very considerate and thoughtful. Child number 2, personality-wise, is she's the family actress, very, very quirky, very funny. And personality number 3 is very direct, brutally honest, and very independent. So based on, we'll go with the shirt. Who do you think?
Number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Who do you think picked the pants?
Number 3.
Number 3. And obviously number
Shoes,
1.
number 1.
Shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're wrong. It is. So the pants, I just had to write this down.
Yeah.
The shirt was picked by number 3, so the brutally honest picked the shirt.
Yeah.
The pants, number 1.
Yeah.
And the shoes, number 2. If they want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, on social media or?
Yeah, just through, like we're on Facebook and certainly our website, so we're not hard to find if you just Google, you know, Gemmell or Gemmill Homes, gemmell.com.au, we're not hard to find.
Oh, beautiful. All right, Craig.
All
Thank you
right,
so much for your
awesome.
time.
Thanks very much,
Cheers.
Quentin.